Wait, what the hell is this title, my friends? We are fighting Mexico right now? Okay, never mind. Mexico cartels. In that case, we go into this. Trump's military move terrifies Mexico cartels. Never a good idea to mess with America, but I guess we shall see. Before I go into that, let me ask you for one thing. If you can leave a like, thank you so much. Is the best way to show support. Now, if you can subscribe, well, in that case, forget about it. You make my day. Have that in consideration. Link for the original video in my description. And I want to make one thing clear. This is a crazy title. I love Mexican people, but cartels, different story.
On March 28th, a large squadron of Stryker vehicles and accompanying infantry took posts along the US-Mexico border around El Paso. President Donald Trump has decided to make good on his promise to root out Mexican drug cartels, one of the main causes of friction in US-Mexico relations over the previous decade. To that
My friends, I don't want to go very political here, as you can imagine, but I know there is a lot of talks about the border in America, specifically this border with Mexico. And I assume because of drugs, because of illegal immigration, and I also assume cartels make a lot of this happen. Is this fair to say, my friends?
At end, moving military vehicles and increasing border security and surveillance will drastically curb cartel activity between the two countries. But what is the true extent of US involvement in fighting Mexican cartels, especially given they primarily operate within Mexico, where the US military can't go so easily? Why did the US military choose Stryker vehicles to bolster border security? And how will this reflect on the currently hectic US-Mexico relations? Stick around.
Wait. Can America invade Mexico even if temporary?
To find out on today's episode of The Military Show. Let's start with reports of Trump ordering Stryker vehicles in El Paso to provide vital reconnaissance and...
Sorry, I have to say one thing and I will shut up for the rest of the video, but El Paso are actually the brand of the tortillas I buy here in Portugal. They are really good. America, don't mess with that, please.
Surveillance against cartel movement across the US-Mexico border. According to a report from Fox News, the US military sent 2 Strykers to the US-Mexico border. One of them is positioned to get a bird's-eye view over Juarez, Mexico, considered one of the busiest places in terms of human and drug trafficking, with an unusually high number of the so-called gotaways, or illegal immigrants who manage to go over the wall, then escape the US Borders and Customs patrols by blending into the crowd. The 2 Strykers are just the first wave of mechanized infantry reinforcements in the area, with more vehicles expected to arrive at the border over the next few weeks. A report from Business Insider on April 5th indicates that there could be as many as 100 Strykers dispersed throughout the area between Yuma, Arizona, and El Paso, Texas, along with hundreds of soldiers to man and support them. Why are these Strykers so important? Well, unlike what some reports are suggesting, a Stryker technically isn't a tank. Instead, it's a multi-purpose combat vehicle that has several modification options that allow it to adapt to the current needs on and off the battlefield. With that in
So, my friends, again, not trying to go political, but was this already happening with Biden, or is this Trump 100% doing this?
mind, the current Strykers that the US military has sent to El Paso don't seem to have any active armaments on them. They're currently being used for surveillance and have a higher carrying capacity than similar combat vehicles while maintaining defensive armor to allow them to fight efficiently. However, we need to dig a bit deeper into the vehicle's history to truly understand why they are the ones being deployed. To be more precise, a Stryker isn't a single vehicle model, but an entire family of practically interchangeable pieces. It represents one of the US Army's most adaptable combat platforms,
Honestly, this looks like a tank.
serving as the backbone of the medium-weight, rapidly deployable Stryker Brigade Combat Teams, or SBCTs. First deployed in 2003, these 8-wheeled armored vehicles bridge the gap between heavy armored units and light infantry forces, making them uniquely positioned to benefit mechanized infantry the most. What makes the Stryker particularly notable is its fundamental design philosophy centered on versatility. It has a chassis that's common across all vehicles in the family and has also been built in tandem with attachment systems and turrets that fit on top of it. This means each Stryker can, at least in theory, be rapidly configured into over 10 different variants. These include infantry carriers, mobile gun systems, medical evacuation vehicles, reconnaissance platforms, mortar carriers, and anti-tank missile platforms. This
Okay, very versatile. Wow, this is a beast.
modular approach allows the US commanders to tailor their force package to mission requirements. The Base Infantry Carrier Vehicle, the ICV, can transport a 9 infantry soldier squad, plus a crew of 2, while providing protection against small arms fire and artillery fragments. This is essentially the version of the vehicle that has been shipped to El Paso, with few armament options at present. With a top speed of about 60 miles per hour and a range of approximately 300 miles, these Strykers can rapidly relocate and provide valuable cover and fire support. And if the US Army actually decides to outfit the Strykers with weapon systems, then they can truly shine. In Iraq from 2003 to 2011, Strykers proved exceptionally valuable in urban combat. Their
So they are battle-proven.
combination of mobility, protection, and firepower was well suited for the streets of Baghdad, Mosul, and Samarra. The vehicle's relatively quiet operation and ability to navigate narrow streets made them effective for patrols in towns and cities, as well as allowing them to react quickly to ambushes or sudden changes in operation scopes. During operations in Sadr City and Mosul, Stryker units demonstrated their ability to quickly establish a presence, conduct operations, and withdraw before insurgent forces could organize counterattacks. Their speed allowed for what commanders called tactical surprise, even in dense urban environments. Then in Afghanistan from 2009 to 2021, Strykers faced a different set of challenges. The rugged terrain initially raised questions about the vehicle's suitability, but modifications, including the installation of mine rollers and slat armor, enhanced their effectiveness. Stryker units in southern Afghanistan could cover large areas of responsibility that would have been impossible for dismounted infantry alone. The Double V hull, or DVH variant, introduced in response to the IED threat in Afghanistan, dramatically improved crew survivability. This adaptation demonstrated the platform's ability to evolve to meet emerging battlefield threats. While there's no telling if the US does indeed plan to use the Strykers more offensively, these 3 scenarios could be similar to what they would encounter if they were deployed into Mexico against cartels. With the bulk of cartel activity in towns and cities, the Strykers could prove monumental in similar urban combat scenarios as they were in the War on Terror. Furthermore, the Mexican climate and varied geography would make the Strykers shine as 8-wheeled rather than tracked vehicles due to their improved mobility and versatility. But Strykers have
It's kind of crazy, but it's kind of crazy how America is so well prepared no matter what, because the amount of proxy wars that America have been fighting over the years makes America more ready than any other military in the world right now.
proven equally valuable in non-combat scenarios. During humanitarian assistance operations following Hurricane Katrina in 2005, Strykers navigated flooded streets to reach stranded civilians. Their capabilities of fording water, though limited, allowed them to ford water obstacles that stopped other vehicles. In peacekeeping operations in Kosovo, Strykers projected presence while presenting a less aggressive profile than tanks or Bradley fighting vehicles. Their relatively low ground pressure also meant less damage to civilian infrastructure. During NATO exercises in Eastern Europe, Strykers demonstrated strategic mobility by conducting road marches across multiple countries, showcasing the Army's ability to rapidly deploy combat power along NATO's eastern flank. This non-combat potential means that Strykers might not even need to be outfitted with weapons and armaments. If the US uses its infantry for a bulk of US-Mexico border operations, the vehicles could simply be used as backup or transport without degrading the defensive potential of units stationed nearby. The Stryker platform continues to evolve. Recent upgrades include improved protection systems, more powerful engines, and enhanced digital communications. The Stryker Dragoon variant, equipped with a
Dragoon? I thought it was Dragon. Okay, crazy name.
30mm cannon, was rapidly developed and deployed to Europe to counter emerging threats, demonstrating the platform's adaptability. The Crow's J, or Common Remotely Operated Weapon Station Javelin integration, allows Strykers to engage armored threats while on the move, significantly expanding their anti-armor capabilities without requiring a specialized variant. As the Army looks toward multi-domain operations, Strykers are being equipped with electronic warfare packages, counter-UAS systems, and advanced networking capabilities, ensuring this versatile platform will remain relevant. This can be doubly important in the current standoff between cartels and Mexican and US administrations. The US has recently started launching more surveillance operations against cartels, particularly aiming to create a presence surrounding the US-Mexico border and the areas most affected by cartel activity. The Strykers could be
Honestly, I think this is a good thing, my friends. Those cartels, they destroy people's lives, people's life. If in some type of capacity we can stop them, even if not completely, this is a good thing, my friends, and is a great use of the military, at least from what I understand. Of course, you guys are the American people, you guys decide what you should do, but me looking from outside, this seems a really good thing.
Integrated as ground-based surveillance and data link units to provide more effective and faster communication in case the conflict becomes more violent than it is. And the 2 strikers that have been deployed to El Paso have already had some effect on local cartel activity. According to one report, the vehicles have been an effective deterrent against immigration attempts and illegal border crossings. The vehicles can use infrared optics to spot immigrants trying to cross the border when the agents on the ground can't, heavily improving the US Border Patrol's detection capabilities.
So, my friends, I saw some news here in my country that people, for example, from China, even from Russia, sometimes they pay Mexican cartels to enter America. Is this a conspiracy theory or is actually true? Because the news I was watching, they end up saying that this happens actually quite often. Is this crazy? Can someone confirm if I'm watching fake news or not?
As such, the number of encounters with immigrants has dropped from a staggering 1,134 on March 27, 2024, to just 32 on the same day in 2025. Of course, a part of that has been due to Trump heavily curbing immigration policies and backtracking many changes made during the previous administration of President Joe Biden. And while the Border Patrols are attempting to have 0 encounters with illegal immigrants, there's still a long way to go, particularly due to the complex dynamics between the 2 countries in regard to immigration and cartel activity. As of late 2024, unauthorized immigration at the US-Mexico border reached unprecedented levels. Department of Homeland Security data revealed approximately 2.5 million encounters at the southwest border in fiscal year 2023, continuing a trend of record-high numbers that began in 2021. The estimated undocumented immigrant population in the US stood at approximately 11 to 12 million people, with
oh my God, that's more people than, my country.
Significant increases in arrivals from countries beyond Mexico and Northern Triangle nations. The Department of Homeland Security also reported remarkable increases in the number of migrants from Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti, and countries across South America, Africa, and Asia. The Remain in Mexico policy, briefly revived under court order during the Biden administration, was ultimately terminated in 2022. By 2024, it no longer applied as the administration pursued alternative approaches to manage migration flows. The Trump administration's approach to immigration from 2017 to 21 centered on deterrence.
Just want to make one thing clear, my friends. Don't go crazy in the comment section. I mean, this channel tends to make great videos, and I'm actually enjoying this one. But let's be real. There is always people that say, oh, it's not like this. This is the way to go. Please try to be nice to each other. I love all of you.
President Trump implemented a zero-tolerance policy that resulted in family separations and constructed approximately 460 miles of border wall. His administration reconfigured the Migrant Protection Protocols, commonly known as Remain in Mexico or MPP, while reducing refugee admissions to historic lows. As COVID-19 emerged, the administration utilized Title 42 to rapidly expel immigrants and apply pressure on Mexico through tariff threats to increase enforcement. Mexico responded to these pressures by deploying its National Guard to its southern border and intensifying migration enforcement throughout the country. The relationship
Oh, I thought that was... No, okay, I was like, wait, they are trying to fight America? No, they are actually also trying to protect their border, if that makes sense. Okay, this is a good thing again.
Became increasingly transactional, with immigration enforcement serving as a bargaining chip in broader bilateral negotiations. When the Biden administration took office in 2021, it initially charted a different course. President Biden suspended border wall construction and the MPP program while raising refugee caps. His administration also created legal pathways for certain nationals via parole programs. Although the administration attempted to end Title 42 in 2022, court rulings blocked the move, ultimately keeping the policy in place until May 2023, much longer than many immigration advocates had expected. As border crossings surged to record levels, the Biden administration pivoted toward more restrictive policies by mid-2023. They implemented an asylum ban for those who didn't seek protection in transit countries and established migration resource centers in Latin America, hoping to process potential migrants before they reached the US border. This evolution in policy reflected the administration's struggle to balance humanitarian concerns with the political and logistical challenges of managing unprecedented migration flows. Then we get to
Okay, my friends, illegal immigration and even immigration in general is a huge topic right now in Europe. So as I'm saying this, just don't think this is a unique thing in America. Of course, maybe in America it went to a crazy level. I'm not sure, but in Europe, most of the politics are around the illegal immigration. Some people think we need more. Other people say all of them have to go. Basically, I guess you guys also have this type of speech in America. But I'm just saying, it's a huge, huge topic.
2025 with a new administration, and Trump has wasted no time in making big moves on immigration, especially when it comes to Mexico. One of the first things he did was declare a national emergency.
Honestly, I'm not that type of guy that sits on the fence. Is that an expression you guys have in America? I'm going to share my perspective. Illegal, that's not good, my friends, because it's even unfair for people that try to come legal. Imagine if my family me and my family, we want to move to America, not the case, by the way, but imagine that, and we take care of everything, but then we are competing with people that are entering illegal. Of course, you guys understand this is a bad thing, and it is actually problematic for safety reasons for people that live in the country. Happens the same here. That's why I'm sharing this. But people that want to have a better life think America is a great country because America is truly a great country. Look, I understand. I mean, at the end of the day, we are all humans. I can see, of course, people would prefer to, instead of Bangladesh, live in America. That's kind of logic. But we cannot receive all of them. Sensitive topic. Hope you guys understand my position here. But illegal immigration, not a big fan.
At the southern border. That gave him the green light to send military forces and get construction on the border wall going again. To speed things up, he even waived some environmental rules, including for a new 2.5-mile section near Jacumba Hot Springs in California. He also brought back the Remain in Mexico policy. That means people seeking asylum in the US but coming from other countries now have to wait in Mexico while their cases are being processed. It's a way to cut down on illegal crossings and ease the load on immigration detention centers in the US. On top of that, the Department of Homeland Security reversed a major Biden-era policy. Around 936,500 migrants who came in using the CBP One app were told they had to leave the country on their own, basically self-deport. Another 532,000 people from countries like Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela lost their parole status, and if they don't comply, they face removal and permanent bans from re-entering. Trump also ramped up the military presence at the border. About 10,000 active duty troops and 2,500 National Guard members have been deployed, and it's not just boots on the ground. There are armored vehicles, helicopters, and even Navy destroyers being used to monitor and secure the area. That shows.
Did I understood that correct? Navy destroyers?
Of force has played a big role in cutting down illegal crossings. And it's working, at least according to the numbers we just mentioned concerning encounters with illegal migrants. The Trump administration is taking credit, pointing to the tougher enforcement and stricter rules they've put in place since January. And the strikers are essentially the natural next step in the plan. So Trump is doubling down on hardline immigration policies, especially when it comes to Mexico and the southern border. But that also reflects on the US-Mexico relations when it comes to dealing with cartels. Before 2018, the Mexican administration tried and failed to contain cartels by removing their leadership. This did little to combat the actual cartel
They always have a mustache.
operations, as they were largely decentralized. If a leader was removed, another would pop up, or the cartel itself would split, with the resulting power struggle creating even more violence in the streets. President López Obrador's "hugs not bullets" approach marked a significant departure from previous strategies that were tried before he took office in 2018. Rather than confronting cartels directly, Obrador focused on addressing what he viewed as the root causes of crime through social programs. He limited US security operation, particularly DEA operations, creating tension in bilateral security relationships. Obrador also created the National Guard, but rather than focusing primarily on cartel violence, this force became increasingly dedicated to immigration enforcement. Throughout his administration,
Okay, my friends, I'm kind of curious about one thing, and for sure some people may know the answer for this one. It's a difficult question, but in terms of economy, is more important Canada or Mexico to America? I mean, this is a stupid question in the sense that both are probably crazy important, but I wonder if you guys make more deals with Mexico or with Canada.
Administration, Mexico continued to experience high rates of homicides and disappearances. By 2024, his approach faced widespread criticism as cartel violence remained endemic throughout the country. Strategic territories like Sinaloa, Michoacán, and Tamaulipas continued to experience significant cartel control. The 2023 kidnapping of 4 Americans in Matamoros brought international attention to these persistent security challenges. Meanwhile, Mexican cartels were transforming significantly during this period. They increasingly fragmented from major cartels into numerous smaller groups and diversified beyond drugs into fuel theft, extortion, and human trafficking. Several cartels, particularly the Jalisco New Generation cartel, expanded their territorial control. They developed more sophisticated weapons and tactics while increasing the production of synthetic drugs, especially fentanyl. The DEA
Damn, that drug is a big deal in America, right? I don't think that drug is a thing here. I remember watching a documentary back in the day that the Mexican guy said that in Mexico you have 2 options. As a man, you become part of a cartel or you become a cop. Of course, this is a bit of an over-exaggeration, but there is some truth to that probably, because it's crazy the amount of cartels they have there.
reported in 2024 that Mexican cartels remained the primary source of fentanyl in the US, with the Sinaloa cartel and CJNG controlling the majority of production and distribution networks.
And I guess even if I don't know that drug, I'm gonna assume that drug destroys a lot of people, lives, because I mean, again, if this is stopping drugs to enter America, I'm all about it.
Prompted Trump to make bold claims of going to war against cartels and even deploying US troops into the country, which would create significant geopolitical backlash. US-Mexico relations experienced significant strain over immigration and security issues throughout this period. Cooperation oscillated based on US pressure tactics and Mexican domestic priorities. Mexico deployed
And apart from that, the tariffs, right?
record numbers of security forces to address immigration enforcement, particularly when threatened with economic consequences by the US. However, joint security operations decreased under Obrador, and information sharing on cartel activities became more limited. The US increasingly viewed fentanyl trafficking as a national security threat, while Mexico resisted characterizations that threatened its sovereignty. Despite these tensions, economic integration through USMCA continued. High-level security dialogue resumed in late 2023, but yielded limited results as fundamental differences in approach remained unsolved. Mexico's institutional corruption remained pervasive throughout this period, limiting effective security operations. Impunity rates for violent crimes stayed above 95%,
Wait, is that a TikTok mask?
undermining deterrence efforts. Mexican security forces continue to find themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by well-financed cartel operations. Economic alternatives to cartel participation developed too slowly to provide viable options for vulnerable populations. Meanwhile, the US public's demand for drugs continued unabated, providing steady revenue streams for criminal organizations. Border security measures failed to significantly impact cartel operations, as these groups quickly adapted to new enforcement patterns. Then Obrador was replaced by current President Claudia Sheinbaum in late 2024. Sheinbaum acknowledged that cartels needed to be dealt with at the core, but enacted a much more aggressive approach than Obrador. Early in her administration, she deployed
The amount of protection that I assume that lady have is crazy.
thousands of troops to areas plagued by cartel violence, signaling a move towards direct engagement with organized crime groups. Additionally, her administration has formed an elite civilian force, the National Operations Unit, UNO, aimed at dismantling large criminal organizations through enhanced intelligence and investigative capabilities. Sheinbaum's first term as president came in the middle of a large wave of violence that shook Mexico, partially due to the US intelligence services arresting 2 major leaders of the Sinaloa cartel. This resulted in the Sinaloa cartel essentially dividing itself into its major operational parts, but all of them wanted the power and prestige that the entire cartel had before the arrests. This led to Trump further provoking the Mexican administration by making comments about directly using US troops in Mexico, which Mexico claimed would be a breach of its sovereignty. Then in January, Trump declared several cartels were terrorist organizations, which further escalated the tensions between the 2 administrations. Sheinbaum considered the act unilateral, coming with no prior announcement to the Mexican administration, and would likely constitute a breach of Mexico's sovereignty. Additionally, Scheinbaum declared that the US moving its troops into Mexican borders would constitute foreign interference and intervention, which would not be tolerated. In response to the US designations, she proposed constitutional reforms aimed at safeguarding Mexico's sovereignty and preventing potential foreign interventions. Despite these tensions, Mexico did demonstrate a commitment to bilateral cooperation by extraditing 29 major cartel figures, including Rafael Caro Quintero, formerly the leader of the Guadalajara cartel, to the US for prosecution. This action coincided with high-level meetings between Mexican officials and the Trump administration, reflecting an effort to address security concerns collaboratively while upholding Mexico's sovereignty. But the US continued to ramp up its border presence, and the strikers are just the most recent additions to the lineup. During a House Armed Services Committee hearing on April 1st, Pentagon officials noted that 6,700 active-duty troops had already been deployed to the US-Mexico border, in addition to about 2,500 National Guardsmen that were already stationed there. However, these troops can't actually apprehend illegal immigrants, making them essentially just a deterrent against cartel activity and potential violence. The US military has also deployed 2 guided missile Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the USS Gravely and the USS Spruance. Both the Gravely and the Spruance had previously been deployed in the Middle East and were part of the US interventions against the Houthi-controlled regions in Yemen, utilizing
Yeah, I saw those on the Houthis, and they are kind of scary.
Destroyers alongside the US-Mexico border allows the US
By the way, what happened with the Houthis? They are done, eh?
to maintain an insurmountable aerial presence in the Gulf of Mexico, where a large portion of the drug trade occurs. Spy planes and drones have also been flying regular surveillance and intelligence missions along the border. High-altitude reconnaissance aircraft like the U-2 Dragon Lady and the Boeing RC-135 Rivet Joint have been spotted conducting ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance operations over parts of Mexico. The Navy has also deployed Boeing P-8 Poseidon aircraft to patrol coastal aircraft and support maritime surveillance along the southern border. In addition to manned aircraft, MQ-9 Reaper drones have reportedly been operating in the region as well. These uncrewed systems are equipped for both.
Honestly, my friend, those great moves, but if they really want to scare the cartels, send the A-10 Warthog. Is that how you say it? The A-10 Warthog?
Surveillance and strike missions.
My favorite plane.
On top of that, the Trump administration has ordered Pentagon intelligence agencies to turn satellite surveillance assets toward the southern border, according to a Reuters report from March. And it's highly likely that even the reported 100 strikers are not going to be all that the US uses at the border, given Trump's aggressive stance toward ending the reign of cartel activity between the US and Mexico. The US military has 4,600 of these vehicles on active duty in the US Army alone, so it can theoretically put significantly more of them on the US-Mexico border to reinforce it. But the better question is perhaps, how does Trump want to deal with the fallout from his offensive movements? While the US military presence on the border, coupled with stricter immigration controls, has slowed or stopped some of the cartel activity, Trump has also instituted severe tariffs on Mexican goods and products, further spoiling US-Mexico relations. While these events might not seem connected at first, in the administration's mind, they might be considered linked. So if Trump does end up waging a trade war with Mexico, it might decide to retaliate by outright preventing the US military from being near the border in the first place, or at least limit its usefulness to having observer and deterrent status. But what do you think? What's Trump's next step in trying to remove cartels from the US-Mexico border? Leave a comment.
Okay, my friends, tell me what your opinion on this, but what the hell is this title? What if the US Army went to war with Mexico day by day? Okay, I won't watch that one, I have to admit. This is for the ones that watch until the end. Leave me the number 23 if we should take a look at that one, because I'm kind of curious. Well, that's sad. Thank you so much for watching this with me, my friends. Again, I have a lot of people that watch me that actually have some type of heritage related with Mexico, and I love all of you. But when it comes to cartels, not the biggest fan. So, friends, see you guys in the next one. Bye.